Welcome to another edition of Saco River Chronicles. Today we're lucky to have Bethany Brown from the Saco River Wildlife Center with us, and I'm pretty psyched to have her because I went to their open house on the Christian Hill Road, is it?
Yep.
And I did an impromptu interview with Bethany and one of her co-workers, and I did it with my phone, and I'm doing justice and making amends today with what I hope will be good audio. So welcome to our humble little studio here. Can you tell us about the mission of Saco River Wildlife Center and when you started this nonprofit?
So our mission is to basically stay a wildlife rehab and take in patients, native wildlife, and always stay a hospital to care for wildlife. I know some other centers, as they grow, they kind of get into other areas, but ours is always going to be dedicated to taking in patients, native and sick, orphaned, and ill animals, and try to get them better and get them back out into their home. And we also want to try to help save certain areas or be a part of conservation. I got started. I started my facility in 2015. I actually got started in wildlife rehab somewhere around 2009, I believe, and I started at Center for Wildlife as a volunteer because I had decided to go back to college. And I was terrified of going back to college, but I wanted to study biology. And one of the things was we had to go and shadow somebody. So I was going to shadow one of the vets that I had from one of my pets, and instead they said, I told them what I really wanted to do, and they set me up with Center for Wildlife, and I fell in love. The first day I was hooked. I knew that's what I wanted to do forever, and it was a few years before I finally got the courage up to take the test for my permit and actually go and get my own permit on my own. In the beginning, it was kind of a struggle because I did work a lot, and it was basically me and my best friend Becky Green, and then we took in just a handful of animals, and then I put it out there to get some cage because I was going to build a cage, because my dad had taught me how to do a lot of building and stuff. I just needed trays for the cage, so I put it out there on social media, and Kevin Peterson answered, and he's like, I can build you the trays. So he got the trays together and came out, and unfortunately I had not built the enclosure yet because I was working a lot and stuff. So he built the first enclosure downstairs for me, and he joined our team. So we started out with basically 3 of us in 2015.
And your love of animals goes way back to when you were a little girl, is that right?
Yes, yep.
Did you grow up on a farm?
I guess you could call it a farm. It was a very small farm. We had about, I think maybe 1.5 acres, and it was right on River Road, where I am currently. I didn't move too far down. My parents, I'm one of 9, and next to the youngest. So growing up, we were very poor, but we had very large gardens. We raised ducks, geese, chickens. We had goats. My grandmother next door had sheep. We had a couple ponies, rabbits, cats, dogs. So we had everything you can imagine. And we also my parents did a lot of hunting and fishing in order to support and feed us. So yeah, I just fell in love with every single animal there was. It was magical.
Tell us what's going on now. I know that you are moving from 238 River Road to Christian Hill.
Yep.
And when I visited, I think it was, I don't know, maybe 3 months or so ago, for your open house.
Yep.
3 or 4 months or so ago. And how are things going? How's the construction going?
Things are actually picked up very, very much. We actually hired a contractor to take over basically everything, every aspect. There was a few minor structural issues, so he got those solved. And then he went and started building the vault, because it's such an old house, you have to build false walls. So he's gotten all of the walls started and getting them prepped. He's replaced some of the windows, so we have much, much bigger windows. And we've already hired the electrician, the plumber, the person to do the insulation, because upstairs we have to have the spray foam insulation because it's so, we just don't want to lose any height. And with other types of insulation, you're going to lose the height. So we hired somebody to do that. and that's pretty much it. We have one more person to hire to remove an old chimney to build a.
That's a huge chimney.
Well, the chimney inside will stay. It's going to be the old one that's on
I
the
see.
kitchen.
I see.
So that one was added a lot later, but that one's going to be removed so that we can build a nice set of stairs. So when we have to take things up and down the stairs, we won't. Did you see the old set of stairs?
I did.
Yeah, it's we have the front ones which we're going to keep, but then the side ones you kind of go up and around and around.
They're
and
kind
it's,
of narrow.
Yes, they're like very
Yeah.
narrow.
But the house was built when, in the 1700s?
1781.
And what I found fascinating was that it was at one time a wolf or coyote preserve, is that right?
A wolf sanctuary.
A wolf sanctuary. So you're kind of dusting off the original mission and giving it a new 21st century spin.
Yep. So Brenda used to run the wolf sanctuary, and she was actually a good friend of mine. I met her, over 20 years ago, and I volunteered for her for quite a while and fell in love. And I guess that was another start, thinking that I could actually maybe do something like what I'm doing now. It just seemed so far away when I was younger, and meeting her gave me the hope that maybe someday I could do something more with animals, and my dream was always wild animals. So I'm really hoping that I can honor her by continuing the places as a wildlife center.
Tell us the animals you currently are taking care of.
So we take everything from mice all the way up to coyotes. Some animals we get a lot more of than others. Last year we took in about 254 gray squirrels, I'm guessing at the numbers, I think about 180 raccoons, about 80 skunks. I cannot remember the number of porcupines, but it was probably close to 30 or 40 porcupines. We had a mink last year. So the minks, the fishers, the ermines and the long-tailed weasels, they're a little less common, along with the bobcats and the coyotes. They're a lot less common, but we do take them in. I don't know if you remember seeing the bobcat that we got in.
Yes,
Yeah.
And it didn't make it, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, the neuropathy with the front paws was something we couldn't release. So.
Go through some of the characteristics, starting with mice all the way up to coyotes. Of all of those animals you mentioned, which one would be considered the most high maintenance or the most difficult to work with?
So I'd say the most high maintenance one would be raccoons, and I can guarantee that most rehabbers that
But they look so playful.
They're very playful, but they're also very messy, and they're like toddlers. So having some in an enclosure is like having multiple toddlers, just cute and furry with teeth. And some of them, the older ones, we have to be very careful. We have to have special cages with locks and everything. We have to put it basically like Fort Knox, because they can figure things out.
Mm-hmm. As far as the future, you have in the month of March, we're recording this in February of 2025, and you have a volunteer push going on right now. Is that right?
Yes. Yep, we're trying to get as many volunteers and interns for the baby season. We do have...
And the baby season is right now, is that right?
Yes, we actually got a call on baby foxes probably about 2 weeks ago, but thankfully the mom was around and actually took them back. So we kind of missed that, which is good. But we have gotten, actually we haven't gotten any calls on babies yet, but our earliest last year was March 11th. So, which every year it seems to be getting pushed back further and further as far as when we get the baby calls. Mm-hmm. I know in Missouri and I can't remember what, I know in Missouri, I have a really good friend out there. He's gotten baby raccoons already, and there's baby squirrels out there. So I kind of watch what happens in other states, and as it starts getting closer and closer to our area, I know we're inevitably going to end up with some.
You ally yourself with Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, is that
Yes.
right? Do you work collaboratively with the state?
Yep, I work very closely with a very sweet and wonderful wildlife conflict agent named Bobby Joe. She works all year round now. She does a lot of the wildlife conflict stuff, but also she does a lot of biology stuff and helps out the state biologists. But during the summer, they usually have I think they're going to have around 5, maybe a few more, and cover a lot more territory. Those guys are amazing. You can call them, and if you have conflicts with an animal, like a woodchuck eating your garden, or you have baby animals that you think they're orphaned or something, or some other type of conflict, you can call them, and they will assist you either explaining what's going on, or they'll come out and actually pick up the animal and bring it to one of us rehabbers. So it is amazing, because our calls have gone down a lot since they started that program.
Well, listen, of the list that you just cited, conspicuously missing are possums.
Oh, well, we've actually gotten in at least 9 possums in the past month and a half, I think.
And you know why I mentioned them? I thought of you yesterday.
Oh.
I was stuck in a parking garage in Portland, and someone had a bumper sticker, and it said, possum, the only original marsupial to North America.
Yes, yep. And they're very fascinating. There's a lot of information I could tell you about possums. The whole thing about possums is very fascinating. They're the way they mate, the way they have their babies, the way the mom raises them. Her pouch. It's kind of funny that you said that, because I was watching this wildlife. He's like an ADC agent, and I can't remember what state he's from, but he was explaining possums, and their pouch. The mom can actually close the pouch to be watertight if she has to swim, which I thought was fascinating. And they also have one of the lower body temperatures, so it's very, very rare for them to get rabies. I mean, they still can, but their body temperature is so low that for them to incubate rabies is very rare.
I just have one quick aside about that, then we'll get back to the stuff that really matters. But I lived in North Carolina, in Asheville, briefly, 4 or 5 months in the year 2000, and I was renting a basement apartment, and the upstairs neighbor had a huge tabby cat that seemed to like hanging out with me more. So it was on my chest, and it was purring, and it was midnight. And then all of a sudden the cat started to stir, and I started hearing a strange noise, and I just thought it was my laptop or something, but it persisted, and the cat seemed to be getting more restless. So I turned on the light, and I was frozen in terror, because there was a possum in the corner of my bedroom, and it had gotten through the floor.
Oh,
So
wow.
I cornered it with a clothes basket, and gently tossed it outside, and then more of them started coming through. A whole family started coming through the floor.
Oh my
So I had to
goodness.
call the Blue Ridge Mountain Wildlife Center, and they took care of it. But it is true they do play possum, because one of them
Yes.
hid under my refrigerator.
Oh, no.
And so I had to push the refrigerator up, and there he was under there just hanging out, and
Oh, wow.
pretending to be dead.
I've had a lot of calls with possums in very unique places. Somebody called and said that they keep having baby possums show up in their tub, and they didn't understand.
tub?
Yep, and they didn't understand how they were getting there. So I believe they found a small hole where the babies were getting up, but the mom couldn't. So they would just, one by one, they'd keep bringing me the babies, because the mom ended up, she was under in their cellar or something. It was an old house. So she was gone. So they just, one by one, they kept bringing me the babies. So, yeah, they can get into very, very small places.
It always surprises me how many babies are in a litter. I just saw a picture yesterday of a squirrel that had like 8 or 9 babies.
Wow.
Is that normal? Or?
Squirrels, no. I think they can have up to 6 or
6, okay, I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, I think the most we've ever gotten in was 6, maybe 7. I'd have to kind of. We get so many animals, and it's such a blur with how many babies they get. But the most common of litters for raccoons would be 6 we've ever gotten. Squirrels, I believe it's probably about 6, maybe 7, maybe. Skunks can have up to 7 or 8. And I think possums can have up to 13.
Of all the animals you deal with, which one do you think gets the worst rap unfairly?
There's actually a few. Coyotes, I think, really get an unfair rap. They're here because of us. We extirpated the wolves and the mountain lions, so we had this open spot for a predator to come in, and we do need them. They are here to do a purpose for controlling herds and keeping the sick, injured, the elderly, the old animals. They basically cull the herds of.
It's about ecological balance.
Yes, yep. And a lot of people don't understand that. And our deer population has exploded. We have had the most amount of deer permits given, I think, last year or the year before that. So to say that the coyotes are decimating the deer herds isn't correct. I mean, in some pockets, in some areas, the deer herds might be thinner and might be smaller because of coyotes or because of other things. But we shouldn't be punishing the coyotes for doing what the wolves and the mountain lions would be doing if they were still here. The other animals that get a bad rap is fishers, because people assume that they automatically take their cats. Cats are more likely to go missing because of birds of prey, being hit by a car, disease, or people mistaking them for being abandoned. Then some of the other animals, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Those are the two main ones that I get the most, but anything that goes after chickens. The foxes, the weasels, the raccoons. I get a lot of calls on that. How do I, this animal's trying to get my chickens. How I need it trapped and removed. So instead of saying, yes, you should trap it or remove it, I explain the best way to keep your chicken safe is using certain materials. We house animals like fishers, coyotes, bobcats, and we use certain materials that things can't get in and out. So I always recommend using 1/2-inch galvanized hardware cloth on the floor, the ceiling, and all sides for the run, and then a very secure coop for your chickens. Our animals don't get out, so I don't foresee anything getting in to get your chickens as long as you do that.
Well, yeah, I'm in Westbrook, and my next-door neighbors have chickens, and my dog is on high alert about that. But they're generally allowed throughout the state of Maine, is that right? Up to maybe 6?
I think so, yeah.
What do you have for pets?
I have 2 dogs. I adopted about a year and a half ago. I have a snake. His name is Jasper. So he's actually kind of a pet, but kind of not. He's going to move to the center so we can use him for education. I got him from Mr. Drew and his animals too. And then I also have 3 birds that one I adopted sort of from a hoarding situation. A friend of mine in New Hampshire asked if I would be willing to take it. And then the other 2 came from a very dear friend of mine who passed away. And asked me, before he passed, he asked me if I would take his birds, and I said yes. And then I have 2 ferrets I adopted from the Ferret Rescue of Maine, who are wonderful. So, yeah, I have a few pets.
Well, it takes a special kind of patience to have animals. It sounds like you have your own private little zoo there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I've had everything from chinchillas, sugar gliders, pet rats. What else have I had? Pet bunnies. I've had my daughter, when she was living with me, she had a pet cat. So we've had a lot of different things.
What would you say the core values of the Saco River Wildlife Center are?
We are here the very first thing is to help wildlife, help protect our wildlife, help make sure that they're healthy, get them in and try to heal them. But we're also here for the community. We want to help the community learn how to better live with wildlife and explain, because a lot of people don't understand what wildlife do, and also to explain to people that not every animal or everything that's on the earth is here to directly benefit humans.
It's not an us and them kind of situation.
Right.
We're all in this together.
Yep. So a lot of people ask me, like, what's the purpose of a porcupine? Why are they here? Why do we need them? Even though they don't directly benefit us, there is a purpose for them, and they do serve something within the ecosystem. And I actually posted something recently about our ecosystem and our wildlife. It's like a house of cards. If you pull out one thing, it may not directly impact you, but it's going to crumble some things. And if you pull out enough of it, it's just going to completely collapse. And our ecosystem is a house of cards. You just pull out one thing, over time, everything's going to collapse.
Now, rabbits in particular.
Yes, yeah. And that's actually one animal we don't do a lot of. I send all of our snowshoe hares and our New England cottontails up to Warren Brook Wildlife. She specializes in them, and she specializes in certain animals. She takes all of our neonate pinky squirrels, woodchucks. She also does skunks, chipmunks, the rabbits, and foxes. So certain animals we send to certain places, but the rabbits we always send to her because they're very high strung, and if you look at them wrong, they could die. So, and they need very, very specialized diets.
So, as someone that is considering volunteering, how would I help?
So our current location is pretty small, and most everything that's there is direct animal care. We have a lot of folks come in and just do direct animal care, which is basically cleaning cages, doing their diets, administering medications, some assistance with medical. We also have the basics, things like laundry, dishes. Trying to think of what else.
How do you feed the animals? Do you get donations from Hannaford, or how does it work?
We get a lot of food from food banks, and actually Bonnie Eagle High School and junior high, whatever they have left over for fruits and veggies, they send to us every Friday.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I'd say a lot of food banks donate, and then the general public.
And of course, this isn't some kind of petting zoo. People just can't show up and say, "Hey, can I hang out with the porcupines?"
Yeah.
But how do you keep the animals separate from the volunteers?
So in our current location, like I said, it is a little tiny. So each enclosure, we try to size it appropriately for the animal. They have all the enrichment in there that we can do, like with the Christmas trees that we got. We'll cut branches and stuff. We also have sheets covering them so that it gives them peace, and they don't have to see us and get stressed out. So a lot of them are just covered up so that they don't have to see us. In our new location, I'm really excited because we do have the 4 rooms for all the animals, and the caging will be spaced out more. And we are probably going to be utilizing a lot of cages, stackable cages that have like we have some cages right now that have porcupines in them, and they're called Critter Nation. So they have the upstairs and downstairs, and they can climb up and down, and it doesn't give them a lot of floor space like this, but they have the upstairs and downstairs, which is really nice. And then we just try to put as much enrichment.
Now, as far as releasing the animals into the wild, that's a bittersweet moment for you, is that not?
Yes.
They would not go anywhere other than where you found them, or do you find new homes for them, or do you bring them to Great Wildlife Park? How does it work?
So the majority of the animals that we release, if we can get them back to their territory where they came from, that is ideal. But some situations we cannot do that. A lot of times if we get babies that are orphaned for many reasons, and the people just do not want those animals there, or it's not safe for them. And then also once we get a group of orphans, we can't say, well, this one came from this location, because they all kind of look alike, and it's hard to, you can't handle them, so you can't really mark them and say that they came from this location or that location. So we find state land, conservation land, or we find members of the public who have larger tracts of land that love wildlife and are willing to have animals released on their property. And we do have a list of a few, I'd probably say probably about 5 or 6 large landowners, but we're always looking for more people that have large tracts of land and that are willing to have animals.
There's a housing crisis going on right now, and
Yes.
urban sprawl actually contributes to, in one way or another, the displacement of animals. Do you look at development with a weary eye?
Yes, I understand that we do need development, but we need to try to save spaces for the wildlife.
Wildlife corridors.
Yes, but also we also have to look at how we develop land. Instead of developing like multiple units all in like here and here and here, like
Patchwork.
some of them I've seen in Westbrook and Gorham really, really concern me, because they're just
Yes.
any open space, they're just consuming the open spaces, and there's really not much left. We need I kind of think the 3 to 5 acre for one house is good, because then that leaves the acreage, because a lot of people don't use all of that land.
That used to be the norm here in Buxton. I think it still is.
Yeah,
5
but
acre lots.
the other thing is, I think we need to look into utilizing other buildings that are just empty, because there's a lot of places that are just empty and that are not being utilized. Also, my own personal thing is, a lot of places are being bought up by Airbnbs. and buy things like that. So they're vacant, but they're just being rented out here or there. That I noticed that was a really big issue as far as renters. They were eating up a lot of the homes, and I started seeing that people were really complaining about the pricing and then the lack of renters or the lack of houses available because of the Airbnbs and other places like that.
Well, you've been a lifelong Leamington resident. Have you seen a lot of changes in your town?
I have. Not as much as other towns surrounding. Like Standish has really been built up. Leamington, the biggest thing was the Dollar General that came in, I think. On my road, River Road, when I first built my house, so I grew up on the River Road, on the Route 25 end.
Before you hit the bridge by the Rips or after?
So when you're coming from Standish to Leamington,
yes,
you take a right, and
okay,
3 houses up. That's where I grew up.
All right.
And then it turned. Do you remember the Brown farmhouse? You had the big white farmhouse that was on the hill, and then you go down a little ways, and there was a brown farmhouse that was kind of just sitting close to the road. At the end of that, right as you get closer to the rest of the road, it used to be dirt, and they never plowed it. There was nothing at all on the rest of the River Road from me growing up. And then I think there was 3 houses that were built after a little while, and then I built a house in 1998, and then after that I started seeing a few more houses popping up. But then when I built my new house, well, not new, it's 2000, it's 17 years old, but when I built that house, houses really started popping up closer to Route 11. So it's a lot busier than it used to be.
I have been visiting your website quite a bit. I'm impressed with it. What is your website, and how about some phone numbers for those who might be interested in learning more or volunteering, or perhaps even more importantly, donating to your worthy cause?
So our website is, if you type in Saco River Wildlife Center, it should bring you right to our website. We are in the process of updating our website because there's a few things that we have to update. Some of the phone numbers you could do is, our center phone number is 207-420-7159. And then you can also email us at Saco River Wildlife Center at gmail.com. And I'm trying to think.
And you have a Facebook
Yes.
presence as well?
Yep. And anybody can send us a message through Facebook. We have Suzanne Jacobs, who handles all of our volunteer inquiries and getting people to come in and take a tour and kind of explain everything. We do have packets that we hand out with applications and waivers.
Well, I bet you're a passionate team. You're all
yes.
kind of like pulling for the same thing, and there's probably a lot of good energy that emanates from your organization.
Oh yes, I consider us a small family. Every single one of us, friendships have been created, relationships have been created from people coming together there, lifelong friendships. It's really amazing. As far as the sick or injured animals, we are seeing a spike in rabies, which is very, very concerning for me because we deal with, our main focus is on the rabies vector species, because we do have other rehabbers who can handle the non-RVS. So like the possums, the squirrels, the porcupines, there are multiple other rehabbers that can handle them, and less rehabbers that handle the raccoons, the foxes, the skunks, the bats, and woodchucks. Those are what are considered RVS, even though a lot of other animals can still catch and incubate the rabies virus. My concern is I don't want people to approach an animal if they see it sick. Call us first, or the wildlife conflict agent. Get a video if you can, and kind of explain what you're seeing, what you've seen, in case you don't get a video. Raccoons and skunks especially over the past, I'd say 6-7 months, have been exhibiting a lot, or have been coming back with a lot more rabies. And I honestly haven't seen that since I started. I haven't seen a rabies outbreak down this area as bad as it is. I just don't want people to panic though and go out and start killing wildlife because they think it's rabid when it might have been just hit by a car. Because we do get a lot of animals hit by cars, and they can exhibit a lot of the neurological symptoms that rabies or another virus can exhibit. The other disease,
automobiles are probably the biggest predator animals have.
Yeah, we get a lot of animals that are hit by car. Anything from squirrels, raccoons, skunks, porcupines, possums.
Turtles.
Yes, turtles. The other disease that I'm really concerned about, so we will not take any birds anymore, not even to hold over, because the HPAI, which is the
Avian flu?
the highly pathogenic avian influenza, it is on the rise, and I don't believe it's on the rise as much in other countries, but right now it's really on the rise in the United States, and it is something very concerning because it's crossing over from birds to mammals, and then it does cross over from birds and mammals to people. Not as much and not as much of a risk right now, but if you do see a bird that is acting neurological or even
Erratic.
yeah, so in mammals, the only time we've seen this highly pathogenic avian influenza is in seals, a couple of different seals in Maine, and birds. We did find it in red foxes once, and that was our center that actually got the call on these red foxes. We went out to go see what was going on because there was a little fox kit that was acting sick, and then by the time our volunteer got there, it had passed away. What she saw concerned her enough to call me, so I went out and I said, "Do not touch anything." I went out and I had all the gear and everything, and I found 5 dead fox kits and a dead cormorant, which is an ocean bird. I examined the fox kits and there was nothing wrong with them, so I immediately started thinking that it was the avian influenza, and this was a couple of years ago before it really started taking off. So we decided to do the necropsies and send it into Michigan State University and send it to the state of Maine. Michigan State sent it back and said it was definitely HPAI, but a year and a half went by with no other cases, so we weren't as concerned, but there have been other cases in other mammals across the country. So the reason we are not taking birds is we don't want to bring in a bird that could potentially have it, cross it over to some of our mammals, and then spread through the facility or spread to a human. So that's why we're not taking birds.
I see. Okay. Well, proceed with caution when you see a sick animal is the rule.
If you do have to, for some reason, deal with, pick up an animal, use gloves, wear a mask, just because you want to protect yourself.
Yeah. Well, a lot of us are animal lovers, and we want to feed them and coddle them, but that's probably not a good idea either.
Yes. If you do find an injured animal, sick or injured, never give it food. Never ever give it food. Contact us immediately, or one of our other wildlife rehabbers in the state, and we can give you the advice that you need. And we also have transporters, and we do have a rescue team that can go out and rescue animals.
Why is it dangerous to give an animal food?
Well, I kind of think of it like this. Say a human got hit by a car. When you get into the hospital, they have to give you anesthesia, they have to give you medications or whatnot, or you could have some internal damage,
Yes.
and you can't digest the food. And then also the digestion of the food can take away from other body parts that are trying to hold on and heal.
Mm-hmm.
So we also have very strict diets because some animals can't have certain foods. Some are very toxic to wild animals, and each one of our species, we have special diets for every single species that we have.
Okay, sounds like you're very thorough when you approach the animal.
Yes, we try, and we never stop learning. We are always trying to research, and we always reach out to other wildlife rehabbers, because that's the only way that we're ever going to learn, we're ever going to know exactly what to do, because some have more experience with certain species, some have more experience just in years. I've only been doing this, almost 10 years, and there's other people that have been doing this for 30, 40 years. So we try to take as much information from them as possible. Like right now, we've been having some issues with our skunk diet, and we want to revise our skunk diet, because they are very prone to prolapsed anus, prolapses, period, with their both parts there. We also have seen their intestines can get inverted because they're straining so hard. So we have to just be very careful on what kind of diet they have.
And as far as your service area, are you strictly York County?
No. We cover York, Cumberland, mostly York and Cumberland, but we do go a little bit further. Wilderness Miracles, they're up in Bodenham, so they kind of cover down, we kind of overlap. Mm-hmm. And then there's Warrenbrook Wildlife Rehab in Waterford, so we kind of overlap too.
Okay, so
So-
you have other sister organizations, so to speak.
Yes, yep.
And I think you mentioned that you may have some fundraisers coming up. Can you discuss
Yep.
those?
So we have a baby shower that we've been doing every single year. I think we have a location set, so we have a few more things that we have to finalize for that. And I don't know if we're hoping to finalize a little bit more on our board meeting this coming Sunday. But yeah, every year we do a baby shower, and we invite the public to come out, and we usually have games, refreshments, and things like that.
And
So,
when would that typically take place?
I think we're trying to push for March.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be late March.
Okay. Yeah, you're doing amazing work, and we're honored to have you here today. So
Thank you so
thank you
much.
for taking time to come visit us. And when you get a chance, check out Saco River Wildlife Center on the web.